Since the beginning of artificial intelligence, the biggest question that's been dominating the discourse is, will artificial intelligence make humans replaceable? And if this happens, then what kind of jobs will be the ones that go first? In this video, we're going to look at two recent reports that analyze what could be the scale of automation from the latest generative AI tools like ChatGPT. In a moment, I'm going to explain this graph from OpenAI's report that can give us some fascinating insights into which jobs might be most or least affected. But there's plenty of anecdotal evidence that some people's jobs have already been impacted. For example, there's this Reddit post from a 3D graphics designer saying, "I lost everything that made me love my job through my journey overnight." And another example where a freelance writer says, "I literally lost my biggest and best client to ChatGPT today." In both cases, they acknowledge that their bosses felt they just had to take the time or money savings offered by these AI tools. Now, according to an expert on artificial intelligence, AI could replace nearly about 80% of all jobs that we know that exist. The researcher Ben Godzil has said that AI is not a threat but a benefit, as people will have to find better things to do with their life than work for a living. That is, if you can afford and already have a lot of money. He also added that pretty much every kind of work is now going to be taken up by AI. Now, of course, this isn't new. Earlier versions of AI, like so many technologies before, have been automating jobs for decades. So the interesting questions are, what's the rough speed and scale of impact of these new tools on the job market, and which kinds of jobs are most likely to be replaced? And then, what are the broader implications for society if the forecasts of these reports do come to pass? Negotel was speaking to a news agency, AFP, where he detailed the developments in the field of AI. When the AI chatbot GPT was asked to give a potential list of jobs which it could replace, it provided nearly about 20 jobs just off the back of its hand, which included stuff such as customer service, proofreaders, paralegal copywriters, market research analysts, and also, to a very large extent, most journalists. Last month, OpenAI, in collaboration with the University of Pennsylvania, released a report looking at the potential impact of large language models like GPT-4 on the labor market in the US. Their top-level summary was that they expect 80% of the US workforce to have at least 10% of their tasks affected, and 19% of the US workforce to have 50% of their work impacted. Now, of course, OpenAI has an interest in promoting and exaggerating the usefulness of their AI tools, but even when taken with a pinch of salt, the scale of these figures suggests that millions of people's jobs could well be impacted in one way or another just in the US alone. About a week after OpenAI's report, Goldman Sachs released a similar report looking at the impact of the recent wave of generative AI on the world economy. Goldman Sachs also tries to set an optimistic tone by suggesting that many new jobs could also be created, and that over time, AI could increase global GDP by around 7%. But all this by when? To look at which kinds of jobs might be most affected by these generative AIs, they took both standard datasets that the US and Europe use to map key occupations that make up the economy to the kinds of tasks that need to be done by those who work in those occupations. OpenAI's research used a dataset that contains just over 1,000 occupations mapped to nearly 20,000 tasks. The Goldman Sachs report used the same dataset as OpenAI, as well as a comparable European dataset for about 2,000 occupations. Now, of course, this is just sophisticated guesstimating, but that can still reveal some useful insights. In particular, let's look at what OpenAI's research said about the kinds of occupations that are more likely to be impacted. For this, jobs are categorized into 5 zones based on the required training or education. Zone 1 jobs need little training and pay less, while Zone 5 jobs demand extensive education and higher pay. They then plotted a graph showing the percentage of occupations in each zone impacted by generative AI. Jobs in Zone 1 are least affected, while higher training zones are increasingly impacted, peaking at Zone 4. Zone 5 with the most qualifications is also significantly impacted. Increasing the graph key size highlights these trends, illustrating the influence of generative AI on different job categories. The jobs of, say, a barista in Zone 1 are clearly not in any danger of being automated anytime soon. It's the better-paid middle tier of knowledge workers that are most likely to have their jobs transformed or replaced by these generative AI tools. The Goldman Sachs report has this chart, which offers a similar conclusion, with office admin, legal, architectural, and engineering work tasks being the most impacted by generative AI, and the least impacted include occupations like food preparation and serving, construction, and the cleaning and maintenance of buildings and grounds. Expressing concerns about automation replacing jobs has been accused of falling for the Luddite fallacy of not realizing that new jobs and new industries will be invented in light of the new possibilities that are unleashed by the productivity boost. And they would typically say, "Don't worry, it's mostly low-skilled, boring jobs that are being automated, and we can retrain our citizens to do the more interesting, high-skilled, high-paid jobs." Potential implications of automation targeting higher-paid, high-skilled jobs. Firstly, job losses in well-paid positions could devastate household finances. Secondly, the financial logic of higher education may collapse as students face difficulty finding better-paid jobs to repay their debts, leading to fewer people pursuing higher education. This could impact universities' finances and research. Thirdly, while skilled professional experts may not be immediately threatened, the traditional progression from apprentice to expert jobs could be disrupted as AI reduces the need for human assistance. This shift in the job landscape poses challenges for individuals, educational institutions, and the overall workforce ecology. But without this pyramid of people training and building their experience through junior work, how do we train the next generation of experts? Of course, AI will enable new ways to do some of the training and to augment junior professionals to be more like experts. And remember, in a market, any job that now requires less training has more people who can now do it and is likely to be paid less than it was before. Sure, I may just be suffering from a failure of imagination to be able to see the new business opportunities and well-paid careers that will now become possible and that won't themselves be automatable. And everything discussed in this video is just about the kinds of AI tools that we have already today, tools that are certainly not yet capable of general human-level intelligence. Even with robots possessing general intelligence and excelling at various tasks, there will always be roles where human involvement is valued. While AI can enhance education, the preference for human teachers and physical schools persist. The vision of an ideal society involves more teachers, moving towards a tutoring and mentoring approach, which is currently challenging due to financial constraints. Despite technological advancements, the importance of human interaction and guidance in education remains significant. And a similar story, I think, could be told in healthcare, social care, and indeed in art, culture, science, and politics, where we'll also always want to have humans involved in so many different ways. The real problem is that AI might increasingly replace many of the jobs that pay for themselves through the capitalist market and that generate the tax revenue that pays for the other kinds of work. The problem is that the logic of our political economy is about to be upended, and we don't seem to be ready for that. AI is proving to be the latest tool in the race for human efficiency, the human efficiency which may be productive or destructive, much like the atomic power. Artificial intelligence is likely to be an inflection point in human history, but the question, of course, is this: if AI takes all the jobs, then what will humans, of course, do?